Hello and welcome to JRock's Pop Culture Revolution. This is episode number 10. And wow, this is going to be another great fun episode. I know they all are, right? Well, anyways, I thought we'd do something a little different. Christmas is right around the corner, just a couple of weeks away. And, the holiday season has always been one of my favorite time of year. I don't know. But between Christmas and and the 4th of July, my own personal birthday. I don't know which which is my favorite. Probably though, Christmas, if I'm honest, has always had a special place in my heart. Um, I don't know, just had so many fond memories. Um, Probably from my younger days when I was just a young lad, a young child. Um, Many wonderful memories of Christmas time growing up. Um, of just sharing that time of year. With in the bosom of my family and my friends. And of course, the older I get, you look around and many of the people that were there when I was growing up, they're no longer here. In fact, last Christmas was a very last Christmas we spent with my uncle Richard. He was at the time. He had been suffering from leukemia for the last couple of years, and at the time he's talking about, hey, this I think this is gonna be my last Christmas, you guys. And and again, you want to tell your uncle, your sick relative, you want to tell him, no, don't say that, don't say that. But I think like many people in that condition, he knew his days were limited, and and I tell you, not even really being aware of it. That would be my uncle's last Christmas. Another thing I always enjoy doing at the holiday time, or anytime we have a family gathering, all throughout uh, my lifetime, was I love to take pictures. A lot of people, well, I don't take pictures of us, but the older I get, people love the fact now that I got so many pictures I've taken over years. Um, at the time, last Christmas, I had a video camera. I just got a video camera, a Super 8 camera, and I was taking some video of our Christmas Eve last year because my house Christmas Eve was always a big, big fun holiday, and coincidentally enough, it was indeed my uncle's last Christmas, and luckily at the time, um, even though like you said this is last Christmas, um, I was able to capture that on film, and it was great too because it wasn't the type of thing where he was really kind of down, or you caught somebody on really where they just looked awful on videotape. It's just captured a very special moment last Christmas on videotape. My uncle's no longer here, and so every so often, we slip the I got it burned to DVD. So we watch it on, put it in the DVD player, watch it, and we can think back to our last Christmas we spent with my uncle Richard. But anyways, enough about that. But I just want to let you know, my whole point of all that was that Christmas has always been a special time for me. And again, the older we get, you look around, and some people are no longer here, but you still hold on to those memories from years past, and it's Christmas is always going to mean something to me. And the ones that are no longer here, we still bring them up to conversation. We remember well. So what I thought we'd do for episode 10 here is I remember another thing I loved about the holiday times growing up was not just like you sit around Christmas tree, especially maybe Christmas Eve, Christmas Day. Like I said, Christmas Eve was always a big special day in my family, but I also remember growing up, they always had great Christmas specials, and a lot of our favorite TV shows would have special Christmas themed holidays. Well, um, so what we're going to be talking in episode 10 here about specifically episode of Happy Days, and it was in one of the earlier seasons, and this episode has often been it was often dubbed like the episode was titled, I believe, "Who's Come to Christmas?" And the reason for that is the show's creator, Gary Marshall. He when he was writing the episode and creating this episode, he wanted to obviously create a very special, kind of memorable Christmas type themed episode, and he really accomplished that. And I was reading and doing research for tonight's episode that that this specific episode of Happy Days was inspired by a movie he'd seen starring Sidney Poitier, of all people, called Who's Coming to Dinner. Now, I don't think Who's Coming to Dinner, starring Sidney Poitier, I don't think it really had anything to do with Christmas even. I seen the movie a number of years ago, but after decided to do today's episode of this Happy Days episode, I'm planning to go back and rewatch this movie just to kind of so I can compare it to the Happy Days episode. And the film with Sidney Poitier, from what I remember, the main theme of that was the fact that this woman brings home her boyfriend that her family's meeting for the very first time, and the shocking thing, or the thing that people are supposed to be shocked about, is the fact that she's a white woman bringing her black boyfriend to meet her family, and you can imagine the shock that created back at that time. But so Gary Marshall's seen this movie with Sidney Poitier, and he's like, it'd be wonderful if we could kind of base a Happy Days episode around Christmas, and kind of base kind of like what's going on in this movie with Sidney Poitier. But again, the Happy Days episode really had nothing to do with race. So let's get into it. So to this day, and once I decided I was going to do this episode, I was able to go online, YouTube, and search out this particular episode of Happy Days, and it was really fun to watch again. And even though I've seen it many times, I tell you, it brought tears to my eyes. It kind of got me right here, but in a very good way. I mean, the whole basic kind of concept of the episode is that Fonzie, everybody's favorite character from Happy Days, the guy was just super cool. He can snap his fingers, and girls come running his way. He can bang his fist on the wall. The lights come on. He bang his fist on the jukebox. The jukebox starts to play music, and that was one of the things I loved about watching Happy Days growing up, is stuff like that, especially in reference to the Fonz. I remember as a kid, I believed it. I was by hook, line, and sinker. Seeing him like bang his fist on the jukebox, the music just starts playing. I just thought, man, I wish I could do that. How cool is that? I didn't even question that the Fonz could really do it or not. I was buying it. And so in this episode of Happy Days, titled "Who's Coming to Christmas," it all starts out with the gang and everybody meeting up at Arnold's, the local hangout, and you got to remember, Happy Days takes place in the 1950s. It's a show that's premiered in the early 1970s, and they're supposed to be living in 1950s Milwaukee. And of course, the family that the show centers around is a Cunningham family. And again, the Fonz is the local hero. He's a high school dropout, but he hangs out with all these kids. And you forget that the Fonz is about the same age as these other kids, because we learn that Fonzie's a high school dropout, and so he gets a job, working at this garage as a mechanic, and he's a biker. Everybody thinks he's cool because he rides this motorcycle, and yet, even though he's dropped out of school, he's still hanging out with the same group of kids, and he's seen as a cool guy, the local hero. Many of these kids, they look up to him. When they need advice or guidance, they go to the Fonz. And again, Richie and Ralph and Patsy, you kind of ask, what's a guy like the Fonz, a super cool guy like the Fonz, hanging out with these nerds? Okay, excuse me for saying that, but that's another kind of terminology that pops up throughout the history of Happy Days. Fonzie refers to like Patsy as a nerd, but yet he hangs out with him. Fonzie is the type of guy that he knows. He's very confident. You can almost say he's cocky in a way, but it doesn't come off as being cocky. He comes across as a very confident guy. And the other local kids want to hang out with him. They want to be cool like the Fonz. And oftentimes, when these other kids get in trouble, like there's an episode I remember when these other two guys are picking on Richie and Arnold, and they're making Richie go bing bong while they're playing the pinball machine. Fonzie comes in and sees that these guys are picking on Richie, and he kind of comes to Richie's rescue, you know. And again, when situations like this would arise, um, the Fonz would run to these other guys, these other kids' rescue, and then like the ones that were picking on Richie, there were two of these guys picking on Richie, but yet the Fonz was able to just to look get these other two guys to leave Richie alone. Okay. Um, when it came to the Fonz, everybody had a certain level, kind of a fear factor. You know, it could be two or three other guys, and Fonzie would always come out the winner. Fonzie would always, with just a look, to get the other guys to back down, even if it was another, you know, like two or three guys that were picking on his friends or whatever. The Fonz would give him a look, and they, you know, don't mess with the Fonz. And that was almost how it was in every situation. So again, the Fonz is a super cool guy, and you know, also throughout the history of Happy Days, we learned that the Fonz, you know, his parents, parents when he was very young, they both they walked out of his life. He got left with his grandmother. So the Fonz really never came from much of a loving family. That's why, you know, in Happy Days, he makes his connection with Richie and the Cunninghams, and throughout the whole entire history of the show, that's the kind of whole thing that made the show is the Fonz is a super cool guy, but yet from a wrong side of the tracks, if you know what I mean. Everybody thinks he's super cool, but eventually he bonds with Richie and the Cunninghams. The Cunninghams almost he loved them like they were his, you know, like he felt like he was part of the Cunningham family. He wasn't, I mean, but and even Mr. and Mrs. C, like he tells Mrs. C, even in this episode we're talking about tonight, she says at one point in the show, now Fonzie, I don't want to hear another word. You're staying here and you're going to have Christmas dinner with us. And he says, you know, Mrs. C, the only one that ever talked to me that way before was my mother. She was the only one that got away with it until now. So again, this is kind of Fonzie's way of saying, hey, thanks for inviting me to dinner. And I kind of think of you as my mother. And this was one of the first Happy Days episodes where even you could see Fonzie is starting to really get this kind of bond where he feels like he's part of the Cunningham family. And even, you know, after this episode, you know, you tune in every Tuesday to watch Happy Days, and Mr. and Mrs. C become more and more like the Fonz's parents, you know. There was even another episode I remember where, you know, Mrs. C is kind of, you know, getting Fonzie about something. And then at one point he asked Mr. and Mrs. C, hey, would you guys become my godparents? And Mrs. C is like, oh, we are so honored, Arthur. Of course, Arthur. But you have to be in every night by 6 p.m. just like Joni and Richie. You know, and so again, all throughout the series, you're seeing this bond between the Fonz and the Cunninghams, especially Mr. and Mrs. C. And so, you know, let's get into this episode that we're talking about tonight in tonight's episode of JRock's Pop Culture Revolution, episode number 10. We're talking about the Happy Days episode called Who's Coming to Christmas? And again, to be specific, this was, let me see, season 2, episode number 11. And from what I was able to find out in the research, ever since this originally aired, it has been one of the most popular Happy Days episodes ever. And they did a few other Christmas themed episodes, but this remains the most popular one. And let's get into it now. Here's some direct quotes that were featured in this episode. It will kind of touch upon what I'm talking about here. Okay, now here's some quotes from Fonzie. Hey, Christmas is for family. Hey, I got plans. I got big plans. You guys, you're something else. This is the best Christmas. So these are statements that Fonzie makes throughout this episode. And again, kind of really touching upon what the episode's about. At the beginning of the episode, the gang is meeting up at Arnold's, and everybody's asking, "Hey, Fonz, what are you doing?" "Oh, well, I'm going downtown. I'm leaving on the bus later tonight. I'm going downtown. My cousin that lives downtown, they got this big, beautiful, gorgeous house, and I go there every year. And we just got we're going to have a great Christmas. We're going to have a great big party." And of course, the Fonz gives everybody like a gift, Richie and Potsy and Ralph, and some of his girls that are hanging out at Arnold's. And at one point, like Potsy says, "Oh, Fonz, I feel so bad. I didn't get anything for you." And Fonzie, kind of being this guy that's really in the Christmas spirit, he's like, "Hey, Christmas is about giving. It's all right. You didn't get anything. That's all right. It's all right. Don't worry about it." And so again, the Fonz being the super cool guy, he doesn't want to let on that he really doesn't have anywhere to go. So the story about going to his cousin that lives out of town, kind of a cover story. He doesn't want people to feel sorry for him. But again, Fonzie's a confident guy, but super cool. But you know, he doesn't want anybody feeling sorry for him or knowing that he really doesn't have anywhere to go. So at one point, Richie and Mr. C, they got to go to the store or something to get something for Christmas dinner, and it's snowing and everything. Again, you got to remember they're in 1950s Milwaukee, and they start to have car trouble, and so they take the car for Fonzie to look at, and of course Mr. C, the car gets fixed, and Mr. C, off, Howard Cunningham, he offers to pay Fonzie for fixing the car, and Fonzie gets kind of like indignant, and he said, "Hey, Mr. C, it's Christmas time. I'm not going to charge you. This is my gift to you, Mr. C. Thanks." And another thing we should note about this particular episode in Happy Days, this is way before Fonzie lived in the attic apartment above Cunningham's garage. So in this particular episode, that's another thing that is kind of going on throughout the episode. At this point, Fonzie he's not living at the Cunningham house yet. He's living in his own little kind of bachelor apartment. In fact, Richie and Howard Cunningham, before they go back to the Cunningham house, Richie says, "Oh, Dad, I forgot to give the Fonz his Christmas gift. Is it all right if we go by Fonzie's apartment and we give it to him?" And Fonz, at this point too, Richie, because when they went through by the Fonzie's garage earlier, Fonzie's still telling the story about he's going to his cousin's for Christmas. But then as Mr. C and Richie are leaving the garage, um, Richie catches Fonzie sitting alone in the garage, eating out of like a can of baked beans or something, like that. And he realizes, tells his dad, "Hey, Dad, I don't really think the Fonz has anywhere to go for Christmas. He's sitting in there eating out of a can of beans. If he has somewhere to go, Dad, why would he be eating out of a can of beans and sitting in there by himself? Why wouldn't he just go home then, Dad? Something's going on." And so again, at this point, Richie decides, Dad, can we go by the Fonz's apartment? I forgot to give him his gift. So they go and they catch the Fonz is there, and then Fonzie realizes they're outside his apartment, and he pretends like he's not there. In fact, the music had been playing, and then he shuts off the music, and Richie's like, "Hey, Fonz, we heard the music. We know you're in there." Okay, and so then Fonzie kind of reluctantly opens the front door to his bachelor apartment, and he welcomes him in. "Oh, hey, what are you guys doing here? I told you I got plans. I got to go to my cousin's, for Christmas. They're having a big party." And then both Mr. C and Richie realize that Fonzie really doesn't have anywhere to go, and at the same time they don't want to embarrass him. Um, so Mr. C says, I believe, hey Fonzie, we really hate to bother you. We know you have to get to your cousin and you got to go catch a bus. But could you do us a favor, because our mechanical Santa Claus isn't working, and and Mrs. Cunningham, she just really loves that Santa Claus. And Christmas won't be the same if we can't. Say, okay, yeah, sure. I'll fix. I'll go and look at your Santa Claus. I think I can fix it. It shouldn't be too hard. But I gotta be out of there. I gotta leave right away because I gotta go to my cousin's. The last bus is at 9, and so they arrive at the Cunningham house and everybody's welcoming to Fonzie, and then they have their Christmas dinner eventually, and the whole time is kind of spent Fonzie like, hey, I got to get out of here. I got to go to my cousin. We got big plans, and that's at the point where Mrs. C says, Fonzie, we're not going to hear another word about it. You're going to stay here for Christmas and have Christmas dinner with us. And at that point, too, Mr. C and Richie kind of, Fonz has nowhere to go. And um, so Mr. C at one point says, I don't know how to tell you this, Fonzie, but it's past 9 o'clock. You missed the last bus. And then Fonzie says, hey, I know, Mr. C, thanks. And then so at this point, Mr. C says, well, Fonzie, you fixed our car for us today and you missed the last bus. So I really don't want to have you miss your dinner at your cousin's. So I will drive you in my car all the way to your cousin's, which the cousin, from what Fonzie says, lives like at least 45 minutes to an hour out of town. And he said, "Oh, Mr. C, I couldn't allow you to put yourself in danger and drive in this snowy weather, man. I appreciate it." And so then he at that point decides he's gonna stay and have dinner with the Cunninghams. And then as far as the other people that are present in the room, you got Mr. and Mrs. C, you got Richie Cunningham, you got young Joni Cunningham, and then you got even Richie's older brother Chuck. I believe this is one of the last episodes with Chuck in it. And so, at one point, Chuck is like, "Oh, hey, the lights went out on the Christmas tree. I don't know what's wrong." Fonzie fixes the broken Christmas lights, and then one of my favorite moments in the show was when Fonzie, kind of, decides, okay, he's got no choice. These nice people are welcoming him into their house, and he's gonna enjoy Christmas dinner with these nice people. And these aren't total strangers. These are people he knows. And then Fonzie, I think, from the day he met the Cunninghams and Richie, very much want to be part of their family. They were always, from the minute he met them, very nice and friendly, and he felt like he was a part of a Cunningham family. And that's what makes an episode like this so special. And again, I think one of my favorite moments in the episode is where Fonzie says, "Hey, Mr. C, I know you know about Waukesha. Thanks for inviting me to dinner." And Howard Cunningham says, "Well, Fonzie, I got to tell you, it was actually Richie who figured it out." And then at this point in the episode, Fonzie goes up to Richie and says, "Hey, Red." Now, Red, if anybody's ever watched that, that's Fonzie's reference to Richie Cunningham being the fact that he has red hair. And so he said, "Hey, Red, thanks for having all your freckles in the right place." And again, that's one of those moments that just kind of touches me. And okay, now let's talk about some of these quotes, famous quotes that were featured from some of the other characters in this special Christmas themed episode of Happy Days. Okay, so I gave you some of the quotes that Fonzie said. Now, this is some of what Richie said. "He's spending Christmas alone, Dad. Fonzie doesn't want anybody to know, Dad, that he has nowhere to go." Howard Cunningham, who at the beginning of the episode is telling the family that he doesn't want them to invite any of their friends. This Christmas is just going to be Christmas with the Cunningham family. They don't want any outsiders. This is the beginning of the episode. And then at the point in the episode where they all realize Fonzie really, made up a story, has nowhere to go for Christmas, you start to see the softer side of Mr. C. Howard says this: no one should be alone. Marion, set another place at the table. Marion Cunningham, the matriarch of the family, everyone deserves a warm Christmas. Joni, I'm glad Fonzie's here. And finally, to wrap this up, another real fun part of a episode is, around Christmas time, we all have our favorite Christmas traditions, our special Christmas memories. And for many people, one of those traditions has been to read the book the night before Christmas. That's been a holiday standard for many people. And again, this is a classic kind of, middle income family, from the 1950s, Milwaukee. And again, the thing to kind of keep in mind with that is, that part of Gary Marshall's approach to Happy Days was not that it just took part in the 1950s America, but he chose that time, from what I understand, because that's when he grew up. And the Fonzie character was even based on somebody Gary Marshall knew in his real life. And so the point is, Happy Days was always kind of making the point of kind of showing like a traditional family life. And what I loved about this episode is they made an outsider feel so loved and welcomed. And there's one point as the episode's ending where Howard starts to sing, because he's the head of the family, and one of the things he's, I guess, does every Christmas was he would read the night before Christmas to the family. And then Fonzie says at one point, "Oh, hey, Mr. C, could I do that?" And he doesn't just read the book as anybody else would. He starts it like this. He says, "Hey, not a creature was stirring, not even a mouse. Hey, can you dig that?" And then he just kind of takes over the party in a Fonzie kind of way. And the very last thing that happens in the episode before it ends is they're all sitting at the dinner table having Christmas dinner, and Marion says, "Fonzie, would you like to say the blessing?" And this is how he does it. He looks up. "God, thank you." And again, that credits roll, the episode ends, and it kind of fades to black. And man, I tell you, this is it's one of the greatest Christmas episodes. It really, I enjoyed watching it, in preparation for doing this tonight. I've seen the episode many, many times, and each time I see it, I don't know, something about it just touches my heart. I love it even more. This is a fun thing to do. Anybody knows me that I previously did another pop culture show called Gar Boris's Time Machine. Now, for that show, I had a co-host named Gar Boris, and we did a couple Happy Days episodes, and they were some of our most popular episodes. Happy Days is something, when I look back on my childhood, it's one of those things that I can talk hours and hours about. Happy Days was one of those shows that was loved by anybody, I think, who ever watched it. And again, the Fonzie character is just a character I've always loved for obvious reasons. Like I said, hitting the jukebox, didn't question that he could do it. It's like, hey, how's that possible? He's a Fonz, and then just stuff like, hey, again, it was understood what that was. It was like, that's the Fonz. Hey, no explanation, no explanation needed. And so again, I bring up the previous show I did because, again, Happy Days, we did 2 episodes on Happy Days, and they were some of our most popular episodes. And so I think with the new show, JRock's Pop Culture Revolution, we're going to start doing more episodes like this where I'm kind of thinking that down the line, I'm going to obviously do another episode on Happy Days where we might specifically get into kind of the history of Happy Days, how the show started, a little more about Gary Marshall and the people behind the scenes, and a lot more about the characters. Um, but I've also kind of realized with a show like JRock's Pop Culture Revolution that we could also do episodes like what we did tonight, talking about specific episodes, spending a whole 30 to 40 minutes like we did tonight, talking just about um, a Christmas episode and how I just loved it and it brings back such fond memories. This has been something fun to do, and I can't believe this is the 10th episode of JRock's Pop Culture Revolution. So when we get together for episode 11 next week sometime, what we're going to do is we're going to have kind of a look back on the first 10 episodes. And that's going to be kind of fun to look back on. And I tell you, we're just getting started. It's hard to believe that we launched this show just 4 months ago. I'm just loving to do this. And each time we do one of these episodes, I think we get just a little better. So I hope you all had a great Thanksgiving. Christmas around the corner. I also, before Christmas comes, plan to do a couple more Christmas themed episodes of JRock's Pop Culture Revolution. And that'll be fun because, again, I just love to talk about Christmas. So take care, my friends. Thanks for tuning in. And remember to go to official JRock's Babylon Facebook page and our YouTube page. And you can subscribe to both. And if you do that, you'll be notified anytime we post a new episode of JRock's Pop Culture Revolution or any of our other shows. So thanks for tuning in. And we'll see you again real soon. Take care and have a great weekend. Bye for now.